I think the first question people ask is, what is a digital clubhouse? I mean, it sounds kind of techie, digital. Clubhouse is sort of this warm and fuzzy feeling, and that's a conscious description. In other words, there's a great deal of hype and excitement about the world of the internet. Negroponte's book about we're all being digital. Well, some of us are, but most of us aren't. We saw an enormous opportunity in today's world to begin to create a physical and a virtual environment in which makers and users of networked multimedia, this embraces the internet all the way through to the visual, audio, text, pictures of multimedia, bring users and makers of network multimedia together to define the future in ways that would allow the maximum number of people to participate in the digital age. So that's the mission. Okay, so on. But what's the thing that's the common denominator that draws them to the campfire here? Well, we looked for the most if we assume that network multimedia is all about communication and participation, if that's where we're all going with this, then what is the most fundamental building block of communication? Well, since time immemorial, from those primitive times when we passed our messages around a campfire, it was stories, narrative. The key to all communication is a beginning, a middle, and an end, a tale well told. That is what, when someone comes and says, where do I begin? We begin with a digital story, a story based on personal life experience, a truth that is known. You do not have to be a brain surgeon. You do not have to be a PhD. You do not have to be a geek. You do not have to be, you have to merely be a person with a story to tell and a desire to tell it. And we found that is a very universal desire. And as Joe Lambert and some of his colleagues who've worked with this issue with us will tell you, it is an exciting thing to see how people who were traditionally apprehensive about technology, could not see a place for it in their lives, couldn't figure out how to integrate it into a curriculum, or had traditionally looked at it as a bang-bang shoot-'em-up with levels of difficulty, or a cold box, have now embraced these technologies as tools for self-expression, who look at the internet not as something where they search for gobs of useful information, although that's a pretty legitimate use of this great library that's growing in the sky, but as a chance to actually have something to say and something to offer, a book, if you will, a manuscript, a story, to contribute to that huge global audience. As Howard Gardner at Harvard says, what is it all about? It's about leadership. And what is the foremost skill of great leaders? Great storytelling. So if you combine all of these things together, you have, if you will, the conceptual building blocks of a digital clubhouse. The Digital Clubhouse Network has a mission, and that is that the fifth objective, replication, scalability. Taking the Digital Clubhouse model and finding civic entrepreneurs in every place from Nome, Alaska to Miami Beach, from Bangor, Maine to San Diego, from Tokyo to Oslo, from Adelaide to Kuala Lumpur to Bahrain, any place that there is a community that desires a new and creative and innovative mechanism for entering the digital age and bringing their entire population across that divide together, that suggests an opportunity for a digital clubhouse. So in our next cycle, after we have gone through the process of documenting and tightening up the processes that we're engaged in here locally, is to go nationally, to go globally with this phenomenon. We've found it has universal appeal. We have found that by being a reflection of the internet, by being a reflection of the very phenomena that we seek to address, we are becoming like that phenomena, able to reach out in an integrated way and touch the lives of all those communities, to pool the learning curves and the knowledge and the experience and the stories and share them throughout the global community through the power of networked multimedia. That the equipment, the software, the furnishings were all donated. That will not always be the case, but I believe that the value of having a mothership of this type in each community that can then replicate itself through models like the Cousins of the Clubhouse that I described earlier, where we're assisting these schools to replicate what we do, leveraging off our learning curve, leveraging off what we do, working together collaboratively. But that in and of itself is not a heartbreaker. The equipment requirements, while essential, they are not the biggest stumbling block to creating a digital clubhouse. The need for a civic entrepreneur, you need leadership, you need enthusiastic, passionate people. We are quite passionate about what we've been doing. That humanware element is perhaps the most essential ingredient. And when we are evaluating the possibility of a community taking on something like this, the first thing on our list is identifying the civic entrepreneur, the group of people that have the commitment to draw the assets together, the resources together, and make the clubhouse work. It's logical to assume that if you do A, B, and C, that the ultimate result will come. Here, it was logical to assume that people would respond to this, but that not all of them would. Well, what we discovered was that we have not found anyone in any of our groups that is anything but passionately enthusiastic about this experiment. I mean, one always would assume, I was at Stanford Research for 12 years, there was always a constituency, no matter what the payout was, no matter what the outcome was, that was not satisfied, that was not enthusiastic, that was actually, in some cases, downright hostile. It was threatening to them. It was not something it didn't go the way they had wanted it to go. But here, because it's all based on this individual agenda, as it were, people have defined the clubhouse and the phenomena pretty much by their own lights. As a result, I don't think we have a dissatisfied customer, if you want to use the term customer. We're often criticized because we don't deal with basics. We don't teach word processing here, and there's a huge need for people to learn even that basic digital skill. We don't, for all our talk about trying to accelerate the spread of digital literacy, we do not do a great deal with taking people into Microsoft Word or any one of the packages and really show them. We consider that sort of thing increasingly a process of individual. We look at the young people as a model. They learn because they want to. They engage the computer because it does something for them. So we're looking more at the motivation side of it. Why bother? And we chose something which would allow them to begin to deal with some very sophisticated multimedia tools. Adobe Photoshop, Premiere, these are front-of-the-line products. They're not easy to grasp, and we don't teach them soup to nuts. We give them just enough so that they are able to use that power effectively. Just the way a kid learns just enough at level 1 to get through alive, or with any of these other experiences with the computer. But we find over and over again that motivates them, stimulates an interest, gets a consciousness and awareness about the power that is more than spreadsheets and word processing. It is a much more fundamental communication participation device. So what we find is that people, once exposed to this, some people who've never had any exposure to the computer at all, now see the why and then begin to dig deeper. They start going to the other levels. Now, whether this is going to replace other means of teaching digital literacy or computer literacy, I don't know. I'm not sure it's a relevant question. There is so much to be done that any angle on it that tends to push people forward to engage the technology and use it productively, we feel is worthwhile.